Are you a caregiver for an aging senior, perhaps a parent or a friend, where it's just getting beyond what you're able to provide, where you need some help and it's time to start looking at alternatives? Where do you turn? Where do you go? What do they cost? Please stick around and meet Lindsey Poeth, who is going to blow your mind with this service that is free to you and solves your problems. Stick around.
Hi, this is Ann Byer with Keller Williams Real Estate, and I'd like to introduce Lindsey.
Hey, thanks, Ann. I'm Lindsey Poeth from Oasis Senior Advisors, main line. I'm the owner of the company, and we are a free service that helps seniors and their families find assisted living.
Fantastic. Lindsey, this is such an intriguing service for me and of such interest to so many people who are at the point in life where they need to figure out what their next move is as a senior. Can you tell me a little bit about the differences of senior living options? What choices do people have?
Sure. Well, there are a lot of different options, which is actually where I think getting an advisor or someone who's specific to the area and knows the ins and outs is really important because, again, there are so many options that are available and it can just be really overwhelming. So we think about it in terms of how much care someone needs. If you're completely independent, but you could really benefit from engagement, housekeeping services, not paying for utilities, having a community around you, there's a lot of benefit of that, and that's called independent living. The next stage is assisted living, and they can help with anything from really small tasks of just helping put your socks on. Compression socks can be a real tricky thing, all the way up into doing full service with feeding, transferring, that means like going from your chair to your bed or vice versa. Dressing, because again, it gets really hard as we start to get arthritis in our shoulders and our back to move our arms to get shirts on. And even, again, taking showers, that could be a really important, critical part because a lot of people start to lose their balance and then get very uncomfortable in that slippery type of surface. So that, again, could be someone just standing by to make sure you're okay, all the way up to helping that person clean. So it's a really broad range, which encompasses assisted living. And in Pennsylvania, we actually call it personal care as well. We use those terms a little interchangeably. Then after that, there's something called memory care, which is for those who have cognitive impairment, dementias, Alzheimer's. And what that does is it's the same thing as personal care, only it's a secure area, meaning for people who have elopement behaviors who are trying to exit seek, this keeps them safe and confined. And the activities are different too, because you might also have people who are nonverbal, you might have people who can't do the hand-eye coordination at a very precise level. So they really have different activities of engagement focused for those with cognitive impairment. The last step in our continuum here requires the most degree of assistance, and that's skilled nursing. So skilled nursing, they are in nursing homes, they feel pretty institutional. We often can have a stopover there if we need rehab. So let's say if we have a broken hip and you go to the hospital, you might have to do a rehab stay. And those are also typically in that skilled nursing center.
Well, this is such a complex subject, and I can understand how beneficial it would be to have someone like you who knows all of these differences and all of the facilities and knowing, which one might be appropriate for you based on an interview that Lindsey would give you and to help you sort through this complex maze. Is there a right time that you think, Lindsey, to start looking?
That's a great question.
And are there any advantages to moving sooner rather than later when you may have more physical restraints?
Absolutely. And that actually sums it up. Most people wait too long. And that's not just me trying to get people to move to assisted living. I'm a firm believer that there is a lot of value in that. Everyone's point is a little bit different on when that point is, but the older we get, the more infirm we get, the more difficult it is to move. And then if we wait too long, you miss a lot of the benefits of moving to the community in the first place. It's harder to make friends if we aren't mobile. It's harder to get as much out of the apartment or your space as we'd like. So the longer we wait, the transition is typically harder. So I always encourage people to start with a plan. At least get a plan in place. It might not be the plan for today, but more often than not, I'm talking with families after there's an acute situation, which means we're in a crisis mode. We're in the hospital. It's the second time maybe we've had a fall. And now the doctor's saying you can't go home. Well, that's super scary. And we don't have a plan.
Right.
So get a plan.
And this is true with all seniors. And as a seniors real estate specialist, it takes time to sort through these decisions. And you would rather sort through them when you have more time and you can make rational, consider more options than getting into a crisis mode. And in fact, Lindsey, I seem to recall, when we talked earlier, like I said, how many people are in a crisis mode? And it's the preponderance of people.
Probably 75%.
And you do not want that. So the other thing is, I think a lot of people think, assisted living, that's not for me. I don't need that.
Yeah.
But have things changed? Is it the same as like the old time feeling of a nursing home?
That's a great question. And it is so much different from the old time nursing homes. They still exist, and that's still an option that's out there. But it's very different from what the assisted living or independent living communities today look like. They have engagement. The food is amazing. You have your own private apartments with all sorts of amenities. That could be a kitchen, kitchenette, laundry service. I mean, it really feels much more like a home versus something temporary and very institutional. So that is a big part of what we want people to at least see what's out there, because when they walk in the doors, they go, oh, this is a lot nicer than I thought it was going to be. And nobody is excited about this move. Nobody is raising their hand saying, please take me to assisted living. I can't wait. But we're really trying to open people's eyes to what is out there. And the whole move to an assisted living community is to make people actually more independent, which seems a little counterintuitive. So everyone stays in their home as long as possible because this is my home. This is where my family, I raised my family. I've been here for 60 years. But all of a sudden they can't drive. And all of a sudden maybe a spouse passes and their friends aren't coming over. And it's harder for their family to come over. So now they're isolated in this little world of their home. And our job is to say, let's go take a look at what a community looks like. So now you have all your transportation taken care of. Your family can come visit. Things are accessible to you. All you have to do is walk down the hall for your meal. You don't have to worry about cooking it. So what happens is actually people's worlds open up because they're in a more supportive environment.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue, because sometimes by failing to make a decision to move, the decision is to stay at home. And a lot of people think staying in their home is the right decision. But tell us some things that maybe beyond what you said. You can't drive, you got to get transportation to people aren't visiting. Is there anything else from a financial standpoint that people should consider if they stay at home?
So there is. I guess there's a couple of different factors from that standpoint. So if you do need care, you could always have private duty home care come into your home. That would be something that you would pay out of pocket for. And that's a step a lot of people take at first, because they want to stay in the comfort of their home and they only need a little bit of assistance. That's fine. And in fact, again, we encourage that. We want people to be safe. So if home care is the way to do it, fantastic. But because in Pennsylvania, moving to assisted living or personal care is a private pay endeavor, meaning it's all out of pocket. This isn't covered by Medicare and it's not covered by Medicaid. So oftentimes the sale of the home being their biggest asset comes into play. And that can be an intimidating process as well. So making sure that you have a support team of someone who really knows the area and a well-versed real estate agent who is also specializing in that senior kind of environment is really important to help just put people at ease.
Right. It does. It is a process, and we have lots of support for those of you who are considering a sale of a home. The other thing that's a big unknown to so many of us is, give us, I know it's a big question, but what does this cost? Like, what's the lowest, what's the highest? What can I expect to pay?
Sure. So we talked about before, from really low care to very high care, there's more costs associated with really high care. So from an independent living perspective, you might be able to maybe $3,000, $2,500 to $3,500, $4,000 a month in terms of an independent living apartment. There's typically one meal a day included in that price point, usually housekeeping once a week. All your amenities and activities and utilities are typically included in that. The one exception might be cable. Oftentimes they don't have cable. And again, it depends on the size of apartment that you're getting. Is it a small, efficiency studio that's 350 square feet, or are we talking about a 2,000 foot residence or square foot residence? So that has a big differentiator. When we get to personal care or assisted living, same thing. We're going to take into account the size of the living space, anywhere from a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. I mean, they get pretty big. And the level of care. Do you just need a little bit of help with your medicine? Mm-hmm. Or do you really need full assistance going to the bathroom and getting showers and getting dressed? So on average in Pennsylvania, I would say people are paying roughly $6,000 to $8,000 a month for assisted living or personal care.
Okay, well that's,
and I was going to say, and then a little bit higher than that, if you need memory care, it could be anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 to $8,000. And then for skilled nursing in Pennsylvania, you're going to be paying anywhere from about $11,000 to $15,000 a month.
Oh my goodness.
It's a lot. And we really try to keep people out of the skilled nursing world. It's not good for our morale. It's not good for quality of life.
Right.
So we try to keep people, as long as they can afford to do it, within that personal care world.
Well, you can understand what a treasure you have in Lindsey and her company when you think about all of these variables and all of the phone calls that you might take on. Oh, sure, I'll call Riddle, I'll call Dunwoody, I'll call here. Why? Because she knows all of that. She interviews you and sits down, and it's a very personalized service. Does Medicare generally come into play with any of these?
It's a question I often get. So Medicare covers the medical aspect of doctor's visits within the community. That could be podiatry, that could still be going to, if you switch to the house doctor within the community, that will cover that. But it is not covering your day-to-day monthly fees within a community.
Well, that's important to know.
Yep.
So if you, I understand that you actually take people to these communities, which is fantastic. And what are some things that people should be on the lookout for or consider when they are actually touring a community?
Well, I think overall at a high level, you want to look around to see the residents of the community. Do they look happy, engaged, clean? I mean, those are some basic things, but they're pretty big red flags if you're looking around and everyone is not engaged or they just look miserable. You're going to have some degree of that in every community, but you want to have something that feels vibrant. So walking around, seeing the actual apartments that we're looking at, not just a model apartment, that's really big. Understanding what kind of staffing is on site. There are state regulations which require certain minimums, but there are differences with going above and beyond what those minimums are. That could be, is there 24/7 nursing? What happens if there's a fall overnight? What does that look like? So those are all really important questions. What is the activity schedule? What happens if my mom decides that she wants to switch apartments? How does that work? Like, just questions that there's so many, but until you start doing the tours and seeing firsthand, you'll also just get a feel for the community as well, and that's just as important sometimes.
And I think it's like any home, like
Yes.
people, you walk in and you're either, you have it's about a feeling, and so obviously you're going to start with a tour, but these are things that, you know, you have from your experience that you know to ask. So you tell us the area. I mean, we're in Southeast Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia. We're in Chester County. Tell me the areas that you service.
So I cover all of Chester County, Delaware County, Lower Montgomery, so kind of everything south of the Turnpike, and into Center City. We also go up to Pottstown, a little bit out to the Lancaster area, and so a little bit up into that Berks County, a little bit into the Lancaster County area.
Fantastic. And if you are outside of those areas and you think this is a service that would really benefit you, how would someone get in touch with somebody just like you?
Great question. You can still call me, and because as an Oasis franchise, we work hand in hand with all the other Oasis partners around the U.S. And especially around here, we have a lot of families that maybe mom and dad live in Delaware and a daughter lives in Chester County. We work hand in hand with that Oasis partner down there to make sure that we're not wasting the family's time. We're trying to make it as efficient as possible because this process is already pretty overwhelming. So we, again, just trying to streamline it for the family. So you can call me and I will get you, if the area is not appropriate for me, because again, you want to have experts in the area where you're looking. For me to give advice in California or Idaho is silly, you know, so actually make sure you're finding someone who's an expert in that area. And so yes, we could easily hook you up with whoever we have in that particular area.
Well, this is fantastic. Lindsey, thank you so much.
No,
this
thank
has
you
been
for having
so
me.
enlightening. We're going to have Lindsey's information below in the description box. Feel free to reach out to her. If you have any other real estate questions related to a senior move, I'm Ann Byer, Keller Williams, Exton, Pennsylvania. Happy to help you out. Thank you so much.
Thanks.